Hi there, Musitrature recaps here. Today, I'm explaining a movie called The Best Offer. Virgil Oldman, a highly respected auction house manager, is an elderly man with a refined and eccentric demeanor, yet he retains a touch of romanticism that life sometimes mocks. While inspecting a client's mansion, he stumbles upon a seemingly worthless piece of wood covered in mold but believes it may hold extraordinary value. Virgil, mindful of his appearance, takes great care of himself, disguising his age with dyed hair. He meticulously selects clothes, shoes, and gloves that he never removes, fearing direct contact with others. Being a solitary figure, Virgil dines alone in a restaurant, indulging in gourmet Italian cuisine. During the meal, the chefs, aware of his upcoming birthday, send a cake through the waiters as a gift. Despite the gesture, Virgil refrains from touching it, considering it bad luck to celebrate in advance. The following morning, on his birthday, Virgil heads to the office and, as part of his yearly tradition, answers a call from a persistent client. The caller turns out to be the amiable Claire Ibbetson, a young girl who wishes to sell antiques inherited from her late parents. Unaware that she is conversing with Virgil himself, she requests an appraisal and invites him to her house. Later that evening, Virgil conducts another auction with his friend Billy. Together, they execute a long-running scheme, passing off masterpieces as imitations of other artists. This deceitful practice proves lucrative, allowing them to amass tens of millions of dollars. The following morning, Virgil heads to Claire's house, only to find the gates closed and no one there to welcome him. To make matters worse, rain starts pouring down, compelling him to seek refuge under the canopy of a cafe across from the mansion, where he waits for several hours. The next day, the owner of the auction house rudely dismisses Claire and refuses to meet with her. Determined to get Virgil's attention, Claire fabricates a story about being hit by a car during an argument and being hospitalized. Touched by her tears, Virgil promises to visit her at home. Later, he consults with an expert who reveals that a 16th-century copyist named Vivian's work was concealed beneath a layer of coal on the piece of wood. However, the artwork turns out to be a fake, diminishing its potential value. Approaching dinner, Virgil returns to Claire's residence, encountering Fred, the long-serving butler. Although Claire isn't present, Virgil explores the interior of the mansion, uncovering an array of valuable items, including furniture and paintings, which Claire wishes to sell. In the basement, he discovers a peculiar mechanism piece, which he takes to Robert, a young engineer at a hardware repair shop. While they are uncertain about its significance, Virgil is intrigued by the illogical placement of the mechanism. At this moment, the elderly man observes that girls adore Robert, expressing their gratitude for his repairs with passionate kisses. Giving Claire another call, Virgil reminds her that he needs a signed contract to proceed with the work. Despite Claire's promise to sign the documents, she fails to show up for the meeting once again. During their phone conversation, a noise resembling a dropped ladder is heard, indicating that something might be amiss on Claire's end. It becomes apparent that Claire is avoiding a face-to-face meeting, frustrating Virgil. Nevertheless, he decides to go along with Claire's game and agrees to bring the documents a little later. Discovering another part of the mysterious mechanism in the house, Virgil takes it to Robert, who recognizes its age and value but requires more details. Later that evening, Virgil privately meets with Fred, the butler, and compensates him generously to gather more information about Claire. Learning that Claire's parents passed away a year ago, and she hasn't left her room for 12 years due to agoraphobia, Virgil realizes the challenges Claire faces and calls to apologize for his earlier frustration. At the subsequent auction, Virgil attempts to sell a copy of Vivian's work to his friend but ignores an offer from an older woman, leading to a scandal. To avoid further embarrassment, Virgil sells the painting to the woman for £90,000. However, Billy informs him that the actual worth of the canvas is £6 million, as it is not a copy but the original piece. Virgil spends the morning at a cafe, observing Claire's mansion. He notices a peculiar dwarf woman repeatedly reciting numerical combinations. In the evening, he visits Robert and discovers that the mechanical parts are branded by the renowned 18th-century inventor, Hokinson. Both men recognize the significance of these parts, considering them the early version of a robot capable of providing intelligent responses. Robert suggests searching for additional parts to assemble a mechanically powered doll. Leaving the repair shop, Virgil learns that his young assistant is still involved in casual relationships and has an ongoing romance with a charming girl named Sarah. The following day, the elderly man visits Claire's house again, communicating with the girl hiding in a secret room. She expresses her fear of going outside, drawing a parallel to Virgil's own aversion, evident in his use of gloves and avoidance of physical contact. Gradually, Virgil uncovers more details of the same mechanism, passing them on to Robert. Workers and appraisers later visit Claire's house to take inventory and provide a rough estimate of the items for sale. Due to her reluctance to leave her hiding place, Claire signs a contract and hands over an expired passport with a teenage photo, allowing Virgil to update her personal information. At one point, Claire peeks through the keyhole, catching sight of Virgil and teasing him for dyeing his hair. Feeling insulted, Virgil swiftly exits Claire's house, convinced he won't return. Later, he talks to Robert about Claire, attributing the situation to his friend. Meanwhile, Virgil overhears Claire's words from her secret room and witnesses her washing off the paint, revealing her gray hair. The following evening, Claire calls to pay Virgil a compliment, expressing that she prefers him in his natural state. Immersed in his work, Virgil realizes a week has passed without Claire reaching out. Concerned, he checks on her at the mansion, finding a bloody towel. Claire assures him she was scared but is now fine, still confined to her room. During a meeting with Robert, Virgil observes progress in the construction of the mechanized structure. Despite being a recent opponent of mobile phones, Virgil purchases a smartphone and asks Robert for guidance. He ensures he's always available, anticipating calls from Claire, whom he has already developed feelings for. In a subsequent encounter, Virgil pretends to leave loudly, slamming the door, only to hide behind a statue and observe Claire. He witnesses the charming yet pale girl strolling through the empty mansion. Realizing he needs to depart quickly, Virgil calls Claire and makes his escape during a distraction. Soon after, Virgil is visited by his artist friend, in whom he had never placed much trust. The friend decided to give a special gift, purchasing what seemed to be a replica of Vivian for £250,000, a fraction of its actual value. Robert continues building the mechanized doll with additional parts, assuring Virgil of his capability. In their next meeting, Virgil provides the girl with a list and estimated values of the items in her house. Despite disputes over undervaluation, she leaves him new keys to the mansion and requests not to sell the painting with the ballerina, as it represents her mother. That evening, the elderly man seeks Robert's advice on wooing Claire, who suggests being persistent and spontaneous for success. The next morning, Virgil arrives at the mansion with flowers, but an argument ensues, leading to him discarding the bouquet. In the evening, Claire calls to apologize and invites him inside again. After their conversation, Virgil deceives Claire once more, pretending to leave and then hiding behind the statue. Moments later, he spots Claire in a bathrobe, admiring her beauty, which leads to him dropping his phone in awe. Frightened, Claire locks herself in the room, and Virgil hastily departs, pretending it wasn't him but someone else in the mansion. The girl urgently calls the auction house owner, seeking his return as she feels threatened. Gathering courage, Virgil confesses that it was him. Initially, Claire shoos him away, but then she stops him by coming out of the room. She not only allows him to see her face but also to touch, leading the old man to finally fall in love with the mysterious beauty. While Robert continues assembling the doll, Virgil takes a bold step and gifts Claire some evening dresses. Refusing lucrative business trips, he decides not to leave the city, repeatedly surprising his assistant. A couple of days later, Virgil gives Claire cosmetics, but she struggles to use them, causing another argument. Realizing that Virgil wants to encourage her to go outside, Claire is not ready for such a bold step. Virgil, confused by Claire's behavior, seeks help from Robert. After arranging a romantic dinner, he takes the young man to the mansion and hides him behind a statue. After the date, Robert admits that the old man has excellent taste and has chosen a beautiful companion. The next morning, Sarah visits Virgil and informs him about relationship problems between him and Robert, as he keeps talking about Claire. In a fit of jealousy, Virgil takes away all the developments on the doll from the young engineer and leaves a generous check for his efforts. At their next meeting, Claire reveals her secret room to Virgil and kisses him for the first time. Virgil notices something intriguing as Claire keeps precious items whose purpose is challenging to determine. Observing how he looks at objects and paintings, Claire becomes jealous of Virgil for valuing things, but he dismisses this as silly and inappropriate. Using a fan, Virgil meets with Robert, apologizes for his jealousy, and suggests continuing their collaboration. Having purchased a chic ring with a precious stone for Claire, Virgil goes to her mansion. However, Claire is nowhere to be found, causing him to panic because, due to her illness, she cannot leave the house, and something may have happened to her. In a cafe across the street, Virgil learns that Claire left early in the morning. Unable to locate her, he involves Fred and Robert in the case. Lambert calls his boss, reminding him of the upcoming auction, prompting Virgil to abandon the search for Claire and entrust it to trusted friends. Overwhelmed by the disappearance of his beloved, Virgil struggles to concentrate, making mistakes in presenting items, like calling a picture a closet and a mirror a beautiful statuette. Billy warns his friend that even the most sincere feelings, such as love and loyalty, can be fake. However, Virgil remains convinced of Claire's sincerity and reality. He suffers from her absence, and even his private collection of portraits no longer brings him joy. Suspecting the presence of more secret rooms in the mansion, Fred and Virgil carefully inspect the surroundings. In the attic, they discover a hidden door where Claire was anxiously hiding. It turns out Claire was distressed, having once lost her beloved in Prague and recalling the cafe where she dined with him. Virgil helps Claire overcome her anxiety, and they spend the night together in her bed. Grateful for Robert's advice, Virgil expresses his thanks, acknowledging that without it, none of this would have happened. That evening, Virgil decides to visit Claire again but is ambushed by 3 assailants who brutally beat him in an attempted robbery. Despite his injuries, Virgil calls Claire for help. Overcoming her phobia, Claire leaves the mansion in the safety of her enclosed space to rescue her beloved and take him to the hospital. In time, Virgil recovers, and Claire becomes increasingly less fearful of people and open spaces. During her first visit, Claire is granted the opportunity to explore the owner of the auction house's private collection. She admires hundreds of female portraits in gold frames, feeling a twinge of jealousy towards Virgil's connection to them. Later that evening, during dinner, Virgil presents a booklet listing items for sale. However, Claire has a change of heart, refusing to part with the cherished belongings from her parents. Taking Claire's opinion to heart, Virgil promptly tears up the booklet, deciding to bring an end to his career in the auction business. A couple of days later, Virgil heads to London for his final auction. After a successful event, he receives applause and learns from Billy about a gift, a painting left for him. Upon returning home, Virgil is surprised to find Claire absent. Thinking she might be out, he decides to hang a portrait of her mother in the room with his private collection. However, Virgil is stunned to find that all the walls are empty, and paintings worth millions of pounds are gone. In their place is a mechanized puppet crafted by Robert. The puppet delivers an audio message, stating that every fake contains an element of authenticity. Alarmed, Virgil rushes to the mansion, but the gates are closed. In a cafe, he encounters a dwarf woman who reveals that she is Claire, the actual owner of the mansion, renting it out to filmmakers. The last landlord was Robert, and the so-called Claire left the house 237 times in the past year. With a remarkably accurate memory, she exposes Virgil as a victim of deception. Robert, Claire, and Billy's best friend deceived Virgil, leading him to steal and take possession of his valuable collection of authentic paintings. On the back of the painting featuring a ballerina, Virgil discovers his friend's signature, realizing the betrayal. He also finds a listening device, exposing the extent of the deception, allowing every step to be monitored. Despite wanting to report this elaborate fraud to the police, Virgil is aware that he acquired the paintings illegally, preventing him from taking legal action. Haunted by the memories of an intimate encounter with Claire, even though her feelings were not genuine, Virgil's sanity deteriorates. Seeking treatment, he checks into a psychiatric hospital. Months later, he travels to Prague, searching for the restaurant Claire mentioned. Sitting alone at an empty table, Virgil holds on to the hope that she might have truly loved him and could show up someday. The restaurant's interior, adorned with gears, serves as a metaphor suggesting that our world is mechanistic, portraying people as pragmatic and incapable of experiencing profound emotions and selfless love. And here the movie ends. Thank you for watching.